You have microphones now. Yes, sir.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. We want to welcome you to this Tuesday, April 23rd, 2024 Policy Committee meeting. Those of you who are here in public, thank you for in person. Thank you for coming and being a part of this. And those of you who are watching online or will watch later, thank you as well. We'll go ahead and get started. I think the first thing on our agenda is item 1.02, which is the Policy Committee Chairperson selection. And I will defer, Ms. Allison, do you guys handle that, or do we just, how do we?
Ms. Williams can handle it and just call for nomination for the chair.
Chair?
And that's all you have on the committee.
It's just a chairperson?
Okay, all right. Well, at this time, I ask if we have any nominations for the chairperson of our policy committee.
I nominate Mr. Irwin for chair.
Okay. We have one nomination on the floor. We want to close those nominations at this time?
I guess.
Okay, all right. Do we call, all in favor? All in favor?
Can I vote for?
Can you vote for yourself? Okay, all right, so we have 3 for and none opposed.
So now, Mr. Williams.
Now you're the chair.
And so now we just keep moving. All right. Well, thank you for that vote of confidence. All right, item 1.03 is our policy CCA, which is our organizational chart. Ms. Williams, I know this has been presented to the board already. Are there any changes?
Okay, yes, there are changes. And if you look in your package, you'll see the old one first. That's the old organizational chart. And then the second document, you'll see the proposed new organizational chart. And just to give you an idea of how it's structured, we will have 2 assistant superintendents, as we've had in the past from our old chart. However, the assistant superintendents will have new titles. So the first one will be the Assistant Superintendent of Academics and Student Affairs, and that was the Assistant Superintendent of Learning Support Services, but now will be the Assistant Superintendent of Academics and Student Affairs. And then our second Assistant Superintendent was the Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction. That Assistant Superintendent will now be the Assistant Superintendent of Operational Management and Innovation. And the reasons I particularly made these changes is just to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our district and making sure that we have the right people in the right places. And under the Assistant Superintendent of Academics and Student Affairs, you will see most of those departments deal with students or deal with teachers or certification or anything dealing with instruction, teachers, certification, those sorts of things. And then over with the Assistant Superintendent of Operational Management and Innovation, you'll see all of those departments that support the operation of the district, such as buildings and grounds, safety and security, student nutrition, student transportation, technology, athletics. And then you'll also see federal programs there. And the reason federal programs is under operational management and innovation is because there are lots of different federal funds, title grants, those sorts of things that fall under, in my opinion, innovation. So we're looking at how we can create a more effective and efficient school district, and we need to look at the funds that we have for those things. So that is the reason why federal programs is under operational management and innovation. And then under the superintendent will be the executive administrative assistant, also the chief financial officer, the communications coordinator, and then all of the principals and the director of TCTC.
I have one question, and I know we have voted on this, but just sitting and was looking at it, Director of Human Resources and coordinator for safety and security. When we're dealing with like so many children, personal issues, as well as director of HR, do you think that it should have fell under the superintendent where it would not be like wide range, it would stay pretty much private sector?
So, and that's a very good question. And, you know, as I was thinking about this, one of the things that I was trying to do was just to make sure that each one of our departments is overseen by a leader that could lead and guide with certain, you know, decisions and things that have to be made within that department. And anything that deals with students or teachers, certification, those kinds of things fall under academics and student affairs. Now, there will be times when there's certain information, such as personnel information, that can't be discussed with anyone except the superintendent. And in those instances, I will meet with the director of human resources, you know, as needed in confidence, those sorts of things. So I will still be meeting with these directors, but I will not oversee their daily operations as those assistant superintendents will. I will meet with the assistant superintendents probably twice per month. Twice per week. Twice per month, I'm sorry. I will meet with the assistant superintendents twice per month, and then meet with all of the directors twice per month as well. So I will touch everybody at some point in time. But yes, that's a valid question, Ms. Simmons.
Mr. Stovender, Ms. Simmons, any other questions for Ms. Williams with the organizational chart? And I believe, is this the one that this is the only one that is on our agenda for tonight.
For tonight, that's right.
On our, Ms. Allison, Ms. Bernie, on our agenda for tonight, it just has this policy listed. It doesn't have any action or anything. Do we take action?
It's an action item, so this will be first reading, or if you can adopt it on first reading and have second reading in the next month, but tell us if you intend to go forward with it, or y'all can, if it's a unanimous vote of your board, you could suspend second reading.
And just go ahead and adopt it tonight. Okay.
But either way you adopt it tonight, whether it's first reading or first and second reading, and this is your chart, if that's the board's pleasure.
Thank you, Ms. Allison. So, Mr. Stovender and Ms. Simmons, with that in mind, that we may take, or we will take some form of action tonight, just one more time, are there any other questions about the proposed organizational chart from Ms. Williams? All right. Hearing none, the next item is 1.04, policy BGBDD, which is the board policy process and the board review of the administrative rule. Ms. Williams, do you have that, or is that our attorneys that are presenting?
I have that, but our attorneys are going to present the remainder of the policies.
Okay.
This is the one where we also need to just kind of like, for example, the situation we're talking about tonight, clean it up a little bit to make it easier for you to suspend the policy when it's needed. Kind of how do you define an emergency? Does it require a majority? You know, could it be it's unanimous. Could it be just a majority of board members? Because, for example, in this case, you all want the organizational chart to be passed tonight because it's now the hiring season. So you want to go ahead and suspend this policy that requires 2 readings so that you can go ahead and have this passed and it's in place and the staff can start hiring. So we would recommend if you see under suspension or repeal of a policy, the second paragraph, suspend the policy, not listed on the agenda if it's unanimous. The first paragraph talks about emergency situations not defined. So we would recommend that we bring back some revisions to you that better defines those.
So, Ms. Allison, is it in our policy now that we can do what we talked about a moment ago with the organizational chart, where we can, if it's a unanimous vote, we can suspend the second reading?
That's what that is. It says the board
Okay,
But so we would recommend a few revisions to that one.
okay. Miss-
The other change that we would ask you to look at is just prior to the heading that says suspension or repeal of policy, and it says 2 readings at regular board meetings. You all have a lot of meetings, and some of you have 1 regular meeting a month, and then you also have the committee of the whole, and sometimes you have special board meetings after the committee of the whole, or at other times. If you might want to consider at least saying, generally at 2 regular meetings, but somehow lighten that up a little bit so that you have a meeting tonight, and if you want to have the second reading at the next meeting of the whole, that gets you, 2 weeks earlier.
Yeah, part of our thought process was that is typically as long as you allow at least 1 meeting where there's opportunity for the public to add comments during public participation on the proposed policy if they want to. You can follow what I'm saying?
Sure.
Because the concern is giving the public an opportunity to voice any expressions about a potential policy.
So that was the reason for not allowing the passing first reading at a special called board meeting? Is that what?
That's generally the reason.
Okay,
Yes.
But again, the big reason is you want it to be issued to the public so they can see it and they have the time to look at it.
sure,
So if y'all are to pass this tonight and you have another meeting in 2 weeks, you issue it tomorrow, the public has a chance to look at it and make comments.
sure.
But this, if you consider this to be an emergency situation, because it's hiring season, in that regard, you have.
So basically, what you're saying is best to our advantage not to pass it tonight, to give the community the opportunity to review?
So-
I'm not saying that, I'm not for this particular policy.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're not doing anything with any of the rest of these tonight. The only one that we're doing anything with is the CCA organizational. These other ones, I think the attorneys are just presenting to us tonight for some changes, and then I think they're going to come back to us with some suggestions, I believe. And then we'll pick them up at the next one.
And really, the real reason you suspend or repeal policy, but suspend, are the emergency situations. I have another district right now that's going to make some changes to their attendance policies, such that it's kind of more of an open attendance zone areas that you apply. If there's space available, there's an application process. They've decided to make that change, and they want the deadline for applications to be May 15th. And so they have a meeting tonight. Their next regular meeting won't take effect until just about May 15th, or actually right after May 15th. So they want to suspend their policy. So those are kind of like what you're talking about with hiring. It's these kind of unique situations. It's not just that you're suspending policies at every meeting.
Right.
Right. This should not be something that's done
On the regular.
on the regular at all.
Right. And I do want to say, just very quickly, we have a couple of members of the public here tonight. At previous policy committee meetings, Ms. Simmons, correct me if I'm wrong, we have allowed, if the public has any kind of input on the policies that we're talking about, we welcome that. If you'll just kind of let us know, these meetings are a little bit more open and a little bit more free. So if you guys have anything as we're going through these policies, please feel free to add that in, okay? Ms. Allison, Mr. Vernon, are there anything else on policy BGD?
That's it.
Board members? All right, next is item 1.05.
No, I'm
No,
sorry.
nope.
There's the administrative rule.
I'm sorry, the BGDR, okay?
This one probably needs some significant revisions. It was last updated 10 years ago, and it is much more restrictive. And so it really doesn't consider the goal of the policy committee itself.
Okay,
And so I think you probably need some significant revisions there.
and those y'all will just bring back to us at our next meeting?
We will.
Okay. All right, 1.05, policy BEDF, voting method at board meetings.
This one,
This is the one about the abstention.
just give a reason.
Yes, so
So
we
quorum.
have several issues. I think the bigger thing about this one was electronic means, and you all want your board members to be able to participate. I mean, I think Robert's rules allow, if you agree, allow participation electronically. Do you all want it to be allowed for executive session purposes? And if so, should there be, and this may not be policy, this could be something that you all would agree, but if you're going to participate in executive session electronically, would it be an affirmation that no one is present in the room that can hear or see the meeting? Because I'm not sure, sometimes it's by telephone and sometimes it's,
Yeah.
by Zoom or something.
Yeah, I
So
think,
For executive session.
so policy BEDM actually addresses what you're talking about, video conferencing and electronic means during executive session. Basically, it says that it's not favored, it's disfavored, and will only be allowed by majority vote of the board at a particular meeting. So I guess the reason I brought that up is because it's on a separate policy. I don't know if we want to consider merging these two so that it's one policy.
I think BED, I mean, they both overlap.
Yeah,
But I think BEDF was the one where there was the problem with, in the second paragraph with the law about if you abstain from a vote.
Right, what's the difference in abstention?
Right.
Right. That needs to be, because there's there's different provisions in the law for just abstaining because you choose not to vote, if you don't have to say why you don't vote. And when there's a conflict of interest where the law requires you to state why there's a conflict of interest in writing.
Right.
So this really, that paragraph also needs to be updated to clarify the variations of terms.
And I think the language they use on conflict of interest instead of abstentions actually goes further than that, says recusal,
Recusal.
Okay.
which is different.
So according,
Recusal, you don't even participate in the discussion about the act, for example, during executive session, where an abstention, you can listen to the full discussion, give input, et cetera, still come out and decide you're not going to vote on it. Recusal is a different process.
right. But per the policy, the way it's written now says, in order to abstain according to the law, you have to document a reason. But I believe you guys have said that is not factually correct.
Abstention, you do not have to give a reason
Right.
why. You could be a board member that chooses to not vote on anything ever, and you don't have to say why. Now, your constituents are probably going to have something to say, later. But by law, an abstention is you choose for whatever reason in your heart you're not going to vote on. A recusal is a legal situation. It is my spouse is employed by this district, and it is being reprimanded and is filed a grievance. I could not participate in this situation. By law, I'm recusing myself. We're all in a business where y'all are considering whether or not to give a contract that could affect my business. I have to recuse myself legally. That is a legal issue that has to be documented in writing. And there's a form that you would use to document. Abstention is different.
So in the rewrite kind of, or the amending of policy BEDF, we probably need to actually add in that word recusal.
We need to distinguish.
Right, okay.
And I think also, since we're dealing with this policy, discussing executive session, et cetera, I think that we also need to include in there, it needs to be in writing that we should not have electronics back there. Because I feel that there are a lot of, I know my constituents and other community members have stressed that. And they feel like a lot of information is being leaked by people taking their telephone back there. So I think that if we're meeting and we're having a conversation, I don't think we should have electronic back there. I don't know if that's necessary to go in writing or not, but it's something that we need to take into consideration.
And I think that's something to either do by policy or just by your board, having discussions. There are going to be times you need electronics when you have to call.
Well, we have a phone in there, so we can use the phone that is on
I'm
there.
saying you've got those situations, I know sometimes that a person's phone is being called, but otherwise you could have them back there on silent in the middle of the table. I know one district they actually know one of the owners of Chick-fil-A and bought one of that, or just got one of the baskets. And they sit that in the middle of the table, and everybody puts their phones in there, and that way, if you have a crisis with your family, you know, if somebody's calling, we can stop and you can look at it. But people don't have their phones, they're not messing with them, and you don't know what they're doing all the time. So, I'm not sure I think that's a policy, but that would certainly be a practice within your.
So, Ms. Allison and Ms. Bernie, just on the point that Superintendent Williams brought up, policy BEDM, which we're going to discuss in a minute, and this policy, I think there is some overlap because, so how do we, I guess we just need to address that somehow, that once we change one, that it mirrors in the
You
other.
need to make sure they mirror.
Right, okay. Okay. Board members, is there any other discussion as far as policy BEDF as it relates to recusal and abstaining from votes or anything else in that policy? So our attorneys will come back with us with some language to do that. Can we go ahead and address BEDM, or do we need to go? Okay. So let's, board members, let's look at policy BEDM, which is the electronic participation in board meetings. And I think this one is more about calling in or doing Zoom or whatever. So we'll let Ms. Allison and Mr. Bernie kind of fill us in on that.
That's the one I think, the big thing is the board has to vote, it has to be a majority vote to allow someone to participate electronically. I think that, particularly since we've had COVID and we went forward to having people participate virtually, it's considered more acceptable. We don't want to disfavor that with people with illnesses and things. I think you want to put just little guardrails in there about, again, confirming the board approves that someone is going to participate electronically, whether it's by phone or by Zoom, that no one else is in the room present with them, or if they're present, you know, the person's wearing earbuds and nobody can hear, but that the business of the executive session is not being shared with someone in their home or in their car, in their hotel room, in a restaurant.
So, Ms. Allison, paragraph 4 on that policy, the very last sentence there says the board member attending or participating by electronic means will ensure confidentiality is maintained during executive session. Do we need to strengthen that, or do we just need to review that?
We either need to review it or strengthen it or stress it.
Okay. And then my other question is, as I was kind of looking over this policy earlier today, in the first paragraph, the middle, it says this allowance will be made only in exceptional circumstances, and then it gives a few examples: special medical and or travel situations, military service, or job restraints. I know we have done this in the past for people who were feeling ill, or people who were just out of town or stuff. So I'm not sure that some of the reasons why we've done this in the past align with what policy currently says.
That would be up to you. So if you're feeling ill, and again, I think COVID changed a lot of this.
Sure.
Because you don't hold people to come to meetings when they're not feeling
Sure.
well, and spread germs. We might want to just look at the verbiage of that and, does it say special or is it just medical?
Right.
People traveling for their work. I mean, this policy is up to you. You don't have to allow it.
Right.
You all have chosen to, so it needs to be the language and the reason why you're.
Yeah, I'm never with consistency, so you don't want to create a dynamic where so-and-so got approved because they had whatever, somebody else had a similar request and we're not.
Denied it. Right. So my question would be to you guys, just because of the other districts that you work in and things, when our policy says this allowance will be made only in exceptional circumstances, to me, it should be rare that we allow this. But I feel like maybe it's not very rare the way we currently do it. Should it be more, from what you've seen from other districts, should it be more rare that we allow this, or should it be a common occurrence?
I'm gonna give you two answers. I would say pre-COVID, it was extremely rare. Post-COVID, it's been fairly common.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would agree.
So maybe then we just need some language, like you said, to strengthen it, and maybe to put in some more clear guardrails of how we do it. Ms. Simmons, Mr. Stivender, any questions?
I don't have any problem with the way it reads currently. Other than strengthening it, I don't see a problem, considering the fact that we have 4 and 5 board meetings a month now. Some of us have to work for a living and, are on the road a lot. So I think that making exceptions for the few meetings that we've had to miss to be able to talk electronically is necessary.
Ms. Simmons, anything? Superintendent Williams, I would just be curious as to kind of your input on.
Well, I pretty much agree with the fact that this shouldn't be something that, should be, that we should not allow board members to do. I think that they should be allowed. And as Mr. Stivender said, some board members work, they have jobs. Sometimes you're sick, you may not be able to come. And I think that it's exceptional that if you're sick and you still want to participate, that's showing that you're really taking your job seriously. And I think that board members should be allowed to participate. Now, executive session, I go along with what this policy is saying, that, participating by phone or video teleconferencing during executive session should be disfavored and only allowed by majority vote. And we should make sure that if the board member is participating, that they are acknowledging that nobody is in the room or the person has on earbuds or those kinds of things, because everything that goes on in executive session is confidential. But I do believe that board members should be given the opportunity. I mean, I just did it when I...
Last week.
Last
Right.
week I participated virtually. So I think there needs to be some flexibility, especially in the day and age we're in. Lots of things are done by video conference call and video link, so.
Just,
There could be something as easy as a statement that the board member signs that's not part of policy, but something that we write up that says, I affirm that no one was present in the room with me, or I had on earbuds, my conversation was confidential, and sign and put it in minutes. I mean, if you have concerns.
I wonder, have you guys, with seeing this policy, as Mr. Burney said, more frequent post-COVID, do you see a difference in districts between electronic participation in the regular meeting versus executive session? Are there some that say, yes, we'll allow it during the open part of the meeting, but no, we won't allow it during executive session?
I have it, but Vernon may have it.
Yeah, I've known a board take that position about yes during open, no during executive session. I can't remember whether it was before or after COVID, but I have known a board take the position that you cannot participate in executive session for the day. I want to say since COVID, that's not really, I think that was a pre-COVID situation.
So the idea that Ms. Allison just threw out about maybe signing a statement saying that you affirmed that it was confidential and then adding that to the minutes, that would at least give us some kind of legal leg to stand on, right?
Right, and based on your policy, if you're going to vote to allow it to happen. So
Okay.
it's not just pro forma, which is what's happening now.
And would we add the signing of that affirmation into the policy?
We
Would
could,
we-
or we don't have to, but it could just be a practice, but we
Okay.
could have it.
Anybody else, anything? All right, we will move on to policy 1.06, which is policy BEDB, the board agenda.
And I believe this one, the board chair and officers, or at least have some questions, because currently your practice is for the board chair and officers to meet with the superintendent and maybe to discuss the agenda, or at least have that option available for discussions. And the way it's written now, it just says the board chair in cooperation with the superintendent will create the agenda. And it says that in at least two places. So board chair and officers. If you don't have just chair and vice chair, you also have secretary council.
Right.
Right.
I don't want to do anything out of bounds, would it be appropriate, since our board chair is actually attendance at the meeting, to kind of get her? Is that, Ms. Whitkin, is that kind of the only thing with this policy, is just you want to open it up to all of the elected board officers instead of just?
At the Sunshine School Board Association annual meeting, for chairman training in February, it was presented and asked, how many districts collaborate with vice chair, to create their board agendas, and the majority of the hands went up, that vice chair was also included, and along with the superintendent and chairman in the creation of the agenda. And because of our current officer structure, chair, vice chair, and secretary, in practice, we have been the three board members meeting regularly and creation of that agenda. So just in an effort to try to protect that process moving forward, policies.
And Superintendent Williams, you are a part of this agenda process. Do you have any comments on this particular policy?
No, as I read it, reviewed it, and I think the only thing that needs to be added is the board chair and officers. I just think the more board members, included in developing the agenda, the better, and you get more input and more insight, those kinds of things. So I just think adding "and officers" will probably just be all we need for this policy.
Mr. Stivner, Ms. Simmons, anything? I'm just curious, with other districts, we have a wonderful district where all of the board members love each other and like each other. What if we had a board chair and a vice chair and a secretary who couldn't stand each other and didn't get along? Do we run into an issue with that hampering the creating the agenda because we've got too many voices involved?
It could, and one thing I was thinking about revising was the board chair, this is what's right there, the board chair, in cooperation with superintendent and other officers as appropriate. That way, ultimately, if there's a conflict, it's the board chair and the superintendent who are doing it, but in perfect circumstances, the as appropriate is your vice chair and your secretary.
And I feel that if all of us have to, if it comes to that situation, we are all adults. We're here for the children. We're not here for individual. We don't have to go home with each other. So we come and conduct business and go home.
Okay, anything else? Ms. Whitkin, was that it as far as your recommendations for that policy?
Yes, thank you.
Ms. Allison, Mr. Verney, anything else on that?
That was it.
So I was the way it's worded, it allows, even if you're not on, then also the second paragraph, I understood to be suggested by board members, so other board members outside of the offices also still have an opportunity to provide.
Still have a say.
For items on the agenda.
Okay. Sure, what you got?
Can you get a mic? We can't.
Or either come closer, something. Well, we got to actually sit at the table. You can come sit up here if you want to.
No, never that, never
Okay, all
that.
right.
Don't want to be on camera either. As a staff, how does a staff member get suggestions to be put on the agenda? I just saw the word staff in here. Is that staff of the school, Superintendent Williams, or the board? Like,
It's board members, staff members, the public. There's a process that they have to go through, and it's outlined in that second paragraph.
Yeah.
It says
The-
10 days in writing, 10 days
Okay.
in advance,
Yeah.
the superintendent or board chair. And they will decide whether or not to include the requested item.
Yeah.
And then any two board members can request the additional item, and it'll be added.
Anybody else, anything? Ms. Strobel, I did not mean to overlook you as a member of the public. Any other input on any of this? Okay, I believe that is everything that's on our agenda for tonight. So we can dismiss and go get pizza before the long meeting. How about that? I do think now we actually have a kind of concrete policy committee now. And speaking with Ms. Allison and Ms. Jasmine and Mr. Bernie, we do have lots of policies like the one that we discussed tonight that have not been looked at in the last 10 years. So we are going to be busy over the next couple of months trying to look at these policies and getting things updated and making sure that they are helping us to govern the district in the best way we can moving forward. So policy committee members, please just be aware that we're probably going to be quite busy in the next few months trying to get ahead of some of the stuff before school starts. Superintendent Williams, I will give you the last word.
I just want to thank everyone for being here, and I think this is a good start to making sure that we update our policy manual. I was reading through some of the policies, and I said, oh, there's some things in here that I need to be doing after, policies are adopted. So this is good. It's a good learning experience as well. So I think we're on the right foot to updating our manual and, taking care of some of these policies that have been on the books for a long time.
And I do think too, I'm not sure if it's in a policy or not, but there is some procedure for, as the board is discussing policies, that they are made available on our website, I think. So we may need to review that and just make sure that we are following.
Yes, it's in here.
We're going to revise, but that part will not be revised, because once you actually vote on it,
For the first reading?
then it has to be made available.
Okay.
Which is why you have that second reading.
I got you. So I just want to make sure that as we continue to talk about being transparent
Right.
with our public, I just want to make sure that when we do make those, first readings or whatever, that we get those up immediately so our
Yes.
public can see them. And
Most
I
definitely.
want the public to be well aware of everything that we're doing and know that we do value their input and their voices.
Most
And
definitely.
If I could add, one thing that I think a lot of districts find helpful is as you're going through by sections in particular, to have the appropriate administrative staff personnel involved. So for example, if you're dealing with the finance section,
Have Ms. Ramona here.
you're going to have her here and involved in the discussions to make sure she's aware.
Gotcha.
I was dealing with a district and just today about a policy, and she said, why do we have, and it was the finance person, but she was looking at a section, GPOP 2 policies, said, why do we have in there that it says, vacations and then paid holidays, and to get a paid holiday, you have to have been employed for at least a year. We don't have paid holidays. You get holidays, because that's the approved calendar, but it's not paid, which is a good question. So you have the appropriate staff looking at policy
Right.
to bring up those questions, because I think the intent of that policy was, we have holidays that are set by our calendar. That's not how it went, and so you get a different set of eyes that know.
Awesome. Do we have to vote to adjourn, or do we just simply
I
adjourn?
would just vote to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn? Anybody?
Chairman, I make a motion that we adjourn.
Good. All in favor, say aye. Aye.